So I was thinking that because we have been studying this actually on blessing our children and passing on the faith. The most difficult thing in the faith community is passing on the faith. Very difficult. Always a generation will be saved. They will not be able to pass on the faith to the next generation. It's half backslidden or totally backslidden. And then the third generation is totally backslidden. You know, that's what happened to the greatest generation that we have. They were not able to pass on the faith to the baby boomers. And so after that, what we have is what we have right now in America. You know, we have the X generation, Generation X, the millennials, and all of those things. The millennials are coming back, though. They're coming back. And so I like to talk about that tonight before we pray for him. Now, first of all, you can only give to someone what you have. Okay? It will be very wrong for you to offer, oh, hey, you want some food? My friend has a food. I'll give it to you. You can't do that. You can only offer, you can only give what you have. In the same way, you can only bless someone with what you have. Now, we're crossing natural and spiritual. If I am to bless you, I cannot bless you with what I have not been blessed with. Biblically, I can only bless you with what I have received from the Lord. I cannot bless you with, like I cannot bless you into something that I don't have. Now, there is faith also on our part and on your part. For example, if you come to me and you say, well, the Lord put this in my heart, this is what I'm going to be doing. Then on account of that word from the Lord, I can agree with you in prayer, but I cannot bless you from me. God will bless you from Him, but I can't bless you from me because I don't have that. You cannot give what you don't have. For example, when we say to somebody, God bless you, what do you mean by that? Can you just, because it became a common phrase that we use, God bless you, can you just really pass on blessing to anybody? The answer to that biological observation is no. Because, for example, you see a criminal and he was your friend and you are parting with him, God bless you. No, God will not bless him. He's a criminal or he's a thief or something else. When we actually meant by God bless you, it's different. I don't know what you mean by that, but you cannot just invoke, because when you say God bless you, you are invoking the name of God and telling God, bless this person. Can you force God's hand to bless someone, even if they don't have the spiritual vessel to contain the blessing? So you can only bless someone with what you have. Now let's look at a few scriptures. Okay, 1 Corinthians 11:23. It is a communion passage, but let me read it anyways. 1 Corinthians 11:23. For I received from the Lord that which I also delivered to you. You see, Paul was teaching about the Holy Communion, the Last Supper. He said, for I received from the Lord that which I also delivered to you. Meaning, I can only deliver to you what I received from the Lord. Paul can only pass on what he received. He cannot pass on what he did not receive. It's about time for us, I think, especially as parents, and you who are new parents, and those of you who are planning to become parents in the future. It's about time that we take an inventory on what the Lord had blessed us with. Because that's the only thing that you can bless your children with also. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance. Again, in the Hebrew, in Hebraism, a good man is a generous man. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Now, I cannot, for example, look at Bill Gates He's a billionaire. I can't look at Bill Gates and tell Joseph, Joseph, now that you're going to Oklahoma, I'm going to give you $1 million from Bill Gates' account. I cannot because it's not mine. I cannot leave an inheritance that I don't have. Meaning some of us, because we did not save or we did not prepare for the future, we will not be able to leave an inheritance for our children. Because you can only leave what you have. That's why I have stories of parents that they left debts for their family to take care of. Because for me, for example, for me and my wife, if we're gonna have, that's why my wife is trying to save some money, she said, for our retirement, but for the future. Because if she doesn't save from the blessings that we are receiving, we are not going to be able to leave anything to our children. You know, that's why we have a house. Now we have 1.5 house, you know. But we have a house that we are taking care of. It has value. That is all we can leave to them. That's why me and my wife, we already have a will. We have multiple wills. If I die, everything that I have will be passed on to my wife. And then comes the different successions. If both of us dies at the same time, the will takes care of that. But it doesn't matter if we have a will, if there's nothing in the will. Nothing will be passed. A simple thing. That's why we parents should really be thinking about leaving something for our children, because a good man, a righteous man, will leave an inheritance for his children's children. Now, let's turn to Proverbs 20, verse 21. Now I begin to hear of people, and I admire them. They say, why will I leave an inheritance to my children when I'm still alive? So now it's beginning to be a fashionable. It's beginning to be a fad right now that some parents are leaving inheritance or distributing their. They say, I want to see my kids enjoy what I will pass on to them. I don't want them to fight when we're dead. But I want you to consider this passage from Proverbs 20, verse 21. An inheritance obtained too early in life is not a blessing in the end. Now listen to this. As a parent then, I cannot just simply dote or keep doting my children because I have it. Because now this is where wisdom in expenses comes into play. If your logic is, anyway, all that I have belongs to my kids, I might as well just give them now. No, you give it too early, it may end up being not a blessing. What's the opposite of not a blessing? A curse. You know? For example, if you have a child who is having problems with drugs, for example, and you are very rich, and you said, well, I don't want to deal with this, I'm just going to give you your portion. You gave it too early. Can you give me an example in the scriptures of somebody who gave the blessing too early? The prodigal son, right? The father somehow was coerced into distributing, into giving to the younger son earlier. What happened? He squandered everything. Why? He doesn't have the capacity to take care of the blessing or the inheritance that his father should have left to him when he died. So now he's going to end up spending the rest of his life not having any more inheritance. He squandered it too early. You know, so our children, no matter how demanding they could be, you put a limit of what you can give them for a time. Okay? Because if you give it to irresponsible people, instead of being a blessing, it ends up becoming a curse. Let's turn to 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 14. I'll read this from the CSB translation. Do not neglect the gift that is in you. It was given to you. Look at this. It was given to you through prophecy or by the agency of prophecy, with the laying on of hands by the council of elders. Now, this is impartation now. Now, this is, I've seen this years ago. That's why I keep telling my fellow ministers, don't just let anybody ordain you. It says here that the gift was given to Timothy. How? By the laying on of hands of the elders. Who are the elders? The presbytery and the church where Timothy was ministering in. Okay, meaning Timothy had observed the life of these elders, and when it was time for Timothy to be ordained, we call it ordination today, they don't call it ordination back then. But when it's time for Timothy to take over a certain responsibility, the elders laid hands on him and passed on the gifts, the spiritual blessings. Now, it turned out, whatever spiritual blessings God gave to me, I can pass it on. Okay? That's why now Paul, in one occasion, says, lay hands suddenly on no man. Because you may end up invoking blessing on somebody who cannot handle it. For example, what's inside this bottle? So somebody put water here, right? What if this bottle got empty? And I decided to refill it. So I will bless it with water. But there are holes at the bottom. So I pour out the blessing. What happened to the water? It drips out. You know. There are lives like that. Unless they are repaired, you can pray for them all you want. The blessing will drip out. Now, Timothy was one of those. Not because of defective moral life, but defective leadership personality. What's the negative about Timothy? Huh? What? He was timid. He was easily intimidated. Now, can you imagine? This guy is so gifted. That's why Paul said, fan into flame. No matter how much prayer Paul did for him and the elders lay hands on him and pass on gifts, it's useless. Why? Because the hole in his life is actually timidity and fear. Okay? Because he was so afraid, he could not take advantage of the blessing. It's like some of these soldiers, they were trained to fight. They were given weapons. And yet, in times of engagement, they're so scared, they shake, they drop their gun, or they cannot pull the trigger. The blessing was useless. Because the vessel could not handle it. You see? And that's why there's a lot of people who are so gifted by God through this process, laying on of hands, but it's not going to be utilized because of spiritual defects in their personality. That's why vessel of honor is pretty much needed. Okay? So, among the spiritual impartation, gifts can be bestowed through the laying on of hands. This leadership, of course. So now let's look at biblical patterns of blessing. When I say biblical patterns of blessing, that is when you pass on the blessing. Okay. Now, this has been something that is in my heart for years, and so I'm searching on it. I could not really find a coherent book, meaning people have revelations from time to time, but I think their denomination is blocking their spiritual perception. And so I keep making studies on this one. These are the patterns of blessing. Now, in creation, the source and origin of all blessing is who? God, right? God is the source and origin of all blessing. You will notice that in Genesis chapter 1, after God created all living things, He blessed them with the ability to reproduce after their own kind. Now, I want you to take note of that. God told the lion, if I will divide, lion, be blessed. Go and multiply after your own kind. Meaning, I don't expect a lion to give birth to a tiger. I don't expect a lion to give birth to an elephant. Why? Because God did not bless the lion to produce elephants. God only blessed the lion with a certain DNA that when a male and a female lion comes together, they can produce another lion. They will not produce a monkey. They will not produce a tiger. They will only produce a lion. Okay? Bless them. Man was also blessed to produce man. That's why now you will understand why bestiality is so evil. Because we are not supposed to produce half human, half animal. We are not blessed with that. We are just blessed with producing after our own kind. Now this becomes more important in terms of marriage. When we get married, if the spiritual DNA of one partner is godly, and the spiritual DNA of the other one is devilish, well, it's not going to work properly unless the other person get born again as well or the other person backslide. So now, they can only pass on their DNA as they are designed or blessed by God. Now, understand this. A lion is blessed by God on being a lion. They say that when a lion roars in the jungle, the reason why lion is not the biggest animal there is. The reason why it's so fierce, they say that when a lion roars in the jungle, it shakes the ground. The male lion, that's why the lion walks alone. They say that a full-grown lion who can roar, when it roars, it shakes the ground, they say. It shakes the forest. The sheer noise that it produces, it shakes the forest. And so it produces fear. It can walk alone. What about a bird? A bird was blessed by God to sing. By the way, guys, when do you normally hear the singing of the birds? In the morning, right? Can you imagine if in the morning what you hear is the roaring of the lion? But can you imagine this? In the morning, the singing of the birds, it prepares your day. I mean, when you hear the birds singing, there is no fear. When you hear a lion roaring, it produces a fear. Now, there's a big lesson right there. You woke up in the morning with a barking wife or a barking mother. It's not a singing of the bird. I mean, it's the roaring of a lion. So what happened to the kids? They become afraid all day long. Are you listening? But here you see different qualities. But a bird cannot roar. He cannot scare anybody unless, of course, you're an eagle. I mean, a Maya bird cannot scare anybody. But a lion. So they serve different purposes. Okay? So now, Adam and Eve are unique. Why are they unique? Because when Adam and Eve were created in that physical body, in that soul, in that spirit, rests all the blessings that God has for humanity. That's why Adam and Eve can produce people of different colors, slant of the eyes. They can produce that. They have the complete human DNA. Only Adam and Eve has that. Okay? Nobody else has that. Because in time, as they continue to separate, DNAs were separated. Now, for Adam and Eve to govern the earth, they were blessed with leadership, with dominion. They were blessed with the ability to prosper and to nurture every created thing. Okay? Now, not everybody has that ability right now, because of the fall. And so, what happened now after the fall is you will begin to see that there is a distribution of these qualities. There is, what movie is that? Lord of the Rings. It's written by a Christian. Why is it that no human being can possess the ring? Because no human being has the capacity to contain the power of the ring. That's why the lesson there is only God can contain all power. You see? Now, liken it to that. No human being right now can have all the gifts and the talents the way Adam and Eve were blessed. Can you imagine, for example, if, somebody can sing a little bit, their pride goes up. Somebody can preach a little bit, their pride goes up. Or whatever skills they have. Can you imagine if somebody has the ability to do everything? You are an engineer, you are a doctor. Wow, everywhere you turn, people will worship you. Can you imagine the amount of bloated ego? And pride comes before the fall. Nobody can harness all the talents. Now, I have read of some ministers who operated at one point in almost all of the gifts. Oral Roberts, Alessio Samuel, these people operate in a lot of gifts, but they don't operate in these gifts all the time. Because John Austin says, can you imagine a guy who can heal the sick? He's a rich man, he said. He said, that's why John Austin said, I can't explain to you. But you can pray as long as you want. If God doesn't give you the gift, you're not going to have it. He said, it's just a gift. It's a gift. Give it. And there is nobody that I know that has all the gifts. By the way, you can pray all you want to have all the gifts. You're not going to have it. Why? You cannot handle it. You see, you cannot handle it. And so after Adam and Eve fall, it was distributed. I also noticed after the fall, people start forgetting the blessings. If you are not operating in the blessing or in the gifts, you tend to forget that. It's like our garage, If you stop using the tool, you may know that you have a tool like that, but you forget where it is. Therefore, you can't use it. Now, I have tons of tools. Sometimes somebody will ask me, do you have this tool? I say, I have that tool, but I have not used the thing for 2 years. So I go to my garage. I could not find it, but I have it. Believe me, I have it. I could not find it. I have not used it. And so there is this thing that we forget the use of certain gifts because we're no longer using it. Because why? We are limited human beings now. We cannot, look, I may be a carpenter. I don't know how much skill I have is left on carpentry. I have not done carpentry in a long while. My skills in studying is still enriching because I'm doing it all the time. My skill in reading is still enriching because I'm doing it all the time. But carpentry, no. I can understand it mentally, though. I look at something and I say, this is how it should be done. This is how it should be done mentally. But then when I'm out to do it, I may not necessarily be able to do it. Why? Because for lack of practice, I don't use it anymore. And so my body forgets it. And so now also we forget how to bless people. That's why now in the Bible you will find that from time to time, God will reveal himself to people like Noah, Enoch, and begin to bless them. But only with certain things. Only with certain things. And Israel has to be reminded all the time, these are your blessings. Israel keeps forgetting. A good example will be, again, Abraham, Jacob, and all of those things. So God began to pronounce blessings to them. Oh, naming of children also proves to be the way by which parents recognize what their children has been blessed with. Now, of course, in our time, now I name all of my children intentionally. Okay. Joseph is named Joseph because I want him to dream dreams bigger than mine. John is John because I believe he's beloved of God, and I want him to be very close to God, and I think I made a good choice on that name because of the career choice that he's making. James, DJ, it's a combination of me and Anne. So not only does she reminds me of the blessing that God gave to me when she gave me my wife, but it's a combination. I want all the blessings, the strength that God gave to my wife and to me to be with her. James, I want him to be able to stand strong in the presence of God. Joel, I want him to be a lion of God. These are the things that I intentionally name my kids. But for example, Joel was born after Lion's Heart, not before Lion's Heart, because I'm looking for disciples who will be like a lion. And Joel, of course, is one of my disciples. and he's a little cub right now. But as he grows up, Joel will continue to develop his personality, and he will be ferocious. He will have the strength of a lion. And I intentionally named my kids that. That's why I don't like anybody. You guys do not call your children names. Don't trash the Filipino name calling. Uhug, boy uhug, boy tulo, walang ganyanan. Because naming our kids is recognizing God's blessings upon them. We don't name our kids with names because they sound nice. Some of the names that I hear right now, I don't know where in the world they get that. Valkyrie, something like that. What is that? What does that mean? You have, especially for the young parents, name your kids intentionally. Name your kids intentionally, because it recognizes, it displays your recognition of God's blessings on their lives. And you heard me say this also. All of my kids can teach. Why? Because I can bless them with that. Because I am gifted, I received from the Lord the ability to teach. And so it's up to my kids to step into that blessing. They can reject it. My wife doesn't want to teach when we began, but she lives in my house. One of the strong anointing in my house is teaching ministry. And so now my wife has moved into that, not right away. She was rejecting it, not right away, but eventually she moved into that. Okay? And she is still growing into it. And then one day I told my wife, I want you to move into apostolic preaching. And she said, what in the world is that? Because I'll be preaching and she will ask me certain things and say, well, this is what I see while I'm preaching. Because a lot of times I'll be preaching and I will see needs in the congregation. Not just here, but everywhere. And I'll be able to address it while I'm teaching. And I begin to teach my wife that, and she said, I don't know how to go into that. And then one day, God opened her eyes. And she said, I begin to see it. Now she can move more into it if she devotes more spirituality to it. You see? But if she doesn't, she will not be able to access it. John can access it. I don't know if John is already moving into it or he will be moving, but he can access it because he's into that. You see? I can only bless my family with what the Lord has given to me. You can only bless your children with what the Lord has given to you. Now, let's go to Genesis chapter 4. Let me read to you from verse 20. Genesis 4, verse 20. Ada gave birth to Yabal. He was the father, look at this. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. Not everybody is blessed to be able to raise animals. Not everybody is blessed. I mean, do you guys know how to take care of chicken? In my family, the one who's really good in taking care of chicken is my kuya. We were in the province, we were given a pair of chicken. I mean, in no time, kasi sa probinsya, there is no basement, okay? So, our house is made out of bamboo, so it's elevated. So the bottom of the house is where you raise chicken. The bottom of our house, my kuya filled with chicken. Yeah. My kuya is also very good in gambling. Now, you may say that gambling is a neutral term. You can make it negative, but when you invest, that's gambling. Do you know if it will make money? When you get married, part of it is gambling. Do you know it will work? So gambling is actually a neutral term. My kuya is a good gambler. My father was a good gambler. They can project, they can take risks. That's why my kuya now ended up becoming a millionaire. He's the best gambler in the house. The number one is my father, of course. But but there are people who are timid. They don't want to take risks. That's why some people have dreams of owning a business. It's just going to stay as a dream. Why? They don't know how to gamble. Or they don't know how to take risks. You see that? That's risk-taking. Gambling is actually a neutral term. You will not find in the Bible, thou shalt not gamble. You will not find that. What you will find in the Bible is against usury, against, there's a term, taking advantage of others. Those are the terms. What? Extortion. You will find against extortion, but you will not find anything in the Bible against gambling, because gambling is a neutral term. It's not a negative term or a positive term. You can use it in both ways. When you take a career, you're gambling on your future. That your career will prepare you for whatever kind of life you want to have. That's why it's a neutral term. Look at this. So this guy can raise livestock. His brother's name, now this is Yabal. Look at this. I don't know what kind of dad he has. But the name of the person is Yabal. His brother's name is Yubal. They just changed one letter. You know. But Yubal, he was the father of all who played the lyre and the pipe. Whoa, musicians. The other one can't play music, but he can make the cows sing. You know. He can't play music. But the other one can't raise animals, but he can play music. That's why even musicality is a gift from God. And look at this. Gave birth to Yabal, father of. Gave birth to Jubal, father of. Meaning, after they receive these blessings, they can pass on those traits. Yubal can pass on the ability to take care of animals and be rich by having livestock. But Yabal can teach you how to entertain people, how to soothe people, how to heal people through your music. That's a beautiful thing, you see. And Zillah, she also gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the forger of all implements of bronze and iron. This guy can work with bronze and iron. This one family. One family can raise animals. One family can play the music. One family, bronze and iron. Can you imagine the monopoly? Here comes the horses. We need horseshoes. We went to the ironsmith. That's my uncle. You see this? But different businesses. And these are gifts. That's why, look, I'm a carpenter, but not all my kids can do carpentry. You know, Joseph is trying to, but he never really developed into it yet. He knows a lot already. I don't know if John can receive it, and I don't know if James can receive it, or Joel can receive it. I don't know if they can receive it. But that is the skill that I have. But they have other skills. You know, they have other skills. My wife is not a carpenter. She can talk carpentry though. She can manage, she can do business. She is very creative. But each to his own skill. This is what you find in the Bible. And the interesting thing there is the father of. And you will find in history certain people who became who is the father of medicine, DJ? Who is the father of medicine? Ay naku, porbida. Who's the father of medicine? Huh? Why are you so sad? Hippocrates, right? It was the Hippocratic oath. So all of those things. So this is also true. Now, I'm talking to you in the positive side. On corrupted humanity. Okay? Weeds produces weeds. Snakes produces snakes. A snake cannot produce a bird. A weed cannot produce a mango. Weeds produce weeds. Look at this. Genesis 6:5. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals, to creeping things, and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. What do you do when you have weeds in your house? You kill them. Do they come back? Yes, they do. But you see them, you kill them. But you try to save the flowers, you try to save vegetables, but you pull the weeds. We separate them. Humanity is like that. Now, as I teach you this, you will begin to understand certain things, like, for example, Canaan became inhabited with weeds. In fact, you will see this prophecy in the scriptures when God began to remove Israel from the land. Why? It became the land of jackals. You see that? It became the land of beasts. Instead of useful animals, God likened Israel to destructive animals that will destroy the land. So even them, God moved them out for a while and let the land rest. You see? And this is where the thing of separation is. The separation becomes important. Now, you'll begin to entertain in your thoughts several things about that. That's why corruption begets corruption. That's why if you are a parent, you don't pass on corrupt qualities to your kids. Look at this. Can you imagine what happened to Genesis chapter 6? The content of their thoughts and their hearts continually evil. Meaning, everybody in that community was corrupted, that nobody is talking good anymore. Huh? Now, when man separated, do you think all of them were thinking evil? No, they were not. But it was dominated by people like Cain and all of those evil people, and evil will just continue. Look, in the Philippines, how does it start? Okay, let's do this. Oh, a police caught me. Oh, pare, okay lang yan. Ako, nilagyan ko I just gave bribe. Really? So the person was not corrupted. So, really? No, I may be caught. No, it's okay, just keep. So the guy tried. Oh, it worked. So what happened? Oh, they began, until everybody became corrupt. To the extent, even among Christians, at one point, I do not know any driver that doesn't have any money in their driver's license jacket. What happened? Everybody is continually thinking bribery. You see? That's why we have to be very careful what we entertain in our hearts and our thoughts, because that is what you will begin to pass on. I mean, we are seeing it in our political scenery. Anything that Trump did, impeach. Now it caught traction. Everybody's, whoa, what happened here? It's the corruption. It's spread like wildfire. So, let's talk about administration of blessing. Let's look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. So Abraham went forth as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Now Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Now, we know from Jewish history that Abraham's father was an idol maker. And so Abraham was making idols. Can you imagine if Abraham stayed with his dad? Wow, the kind of battle that will take place. And so God says, for you to be blessed and for you to contain my blessing, I've got to separate you. And so he lived in the wilderness. He lived in tents. Look, he did not live in cities where he can be corrupted. He refused to enter Sodom and Gomorrah. He's just in the open. And God blessed him. Why? Because God is creating a new culture, a new generation, whose thoughts are his thoughts. That's why when Lot went with Abraham, he was blessed, but he went with the Sodomites and the people of Gomorrah, and he became corrupted, and his heart became filled with unbelief and filthiness. He separated from Abraham, you see. But for God to bless Abraham, he has to take Abraham first. Meaning here, you cannot just pass on the blessing to others. Notice that God cannot just bless Abraham if he stays with his fathers. Yeah. Because his father is corrupt. His family is corrupt. It's talking about wickedness. Why? Later on, this was copied by the patriarchs when they passed blessing on their children. Let's turn to Genesis 17. Let me read from verse 15. Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarah your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Can you imagine the blessings that God wants to give to Sarah? Mother of nations. Abraham, father of nations. Sarah, mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He laughed. And said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God says, no. You know, Abraham pleaded with God, Lord, let it be Ishmael. And God says, no, I cannot give to Ishmael my blessing that I gave you. Ishmael cannot handle it. Can you imagine if God gave the blessing for Isaac to Ishmael, which we know right now is the father of the Arab nations? They will have the wisdom to come up with weapons of mass destruction. The only thing that is stopping Iran right now is because they don't have the know-how. Israel has the know-how. They invented the thing. Therefore, God cannot give it to to Ishmael. For example, you have a child who is crazy, a wild card. Will you give him guns? You're crazy. Give him a flute, not guns. If the guy is abnormal, will you give him weapons? No, he cannot handle it. God cannot bless Isaac with the blessing of, God cannot bless Ishmael with the blessing of Isaac. He will not be able to handle it. You cannot just give your blessing to anybody. By the way, even among your children. Some of your children will receive some blessings, others will not. So you cannot just pass on the blessing to anybody. They need to have some spiritual qualifications. And Paul, of course, understood that. Look at this, Genesis 26:34. When Esau was 40 years old, he married. Oh, you see, he got married at the age of 40. He married Judith, the daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite. And they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. Look at this. Isaac and Rebekah are godly parents. Their son, their firstborn son, brought them grief. Now, parents will understand this. I don't understand it yet. But I've heard this from parents. Their children get married and it brings them grief. Because God told them whom to marry already. Now listen. Esau decided there are some children that if you tell them jump, they will crawl. If you told them to sing, they will cry. Those are kids with bad characters. You see, they don't develop servanthood, they don't develop obedience. And so God told, Isaac told Esau, do not marry from the Hittite clan. He said, oh, Dad, you don't like it? I'll do it. That's what he did. But God told told Jacob, you don't get married from the people who are foreign. At least go to the place of my parents where the faith was still there. Jacob is always obedient. So obedient, he even followed his mom's instruction. If you told Jacob, this is what you do, he does it. Now some kids, they are very creative. They are told exactly what to do, and they won't do it. Troubles. No, you watch for those attitudes. That's why God cannot bless Esau. Even Isaac wants it. God cannot bless Esau. It has to be given to a heart of Jacob. Yeah, Jacob has many flaws. Maybe some people will even argue more flaws than Esau. But Jacob is obedient. He wants God's blessing. He wants God's will. You see, that matters the most. Okay. So, look at this. Genesis 28, verse 1. So Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. From there take yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of peoples. May He also give you the blessing of Abraham. You see this? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Blessings of Abraham to you and to your descendants with you, and you may possess the land, your sojournings with God, your sojourn which God gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob, and Esau. See? Now notice the blessings. None of the blessings that Isaac blessed Jacob with is outside of the blessing given to the family. Yeah. Not outside. It's within. The sojournings, the blessings, and all of those things. Now I am not musical. Okay. Any of my kids can become musical if they want. They can ask God for blessing. I cannot bless my kids with great musical abilities. Hansel can bless his kids with that. I can bless my kids with understanding of the Word, with the ability to teach the Word and other things that God gives them. But I cannot tell, Anne can bless my kids with the ability to become good business people. She has that gift. I cannot. The one I can bless them with is the business of the Lord. You see that? That's why when we train our kids, we send them to a place that can impart that blessing to them. That you don't have. That's why I was telling DJ, because DJ is gifted in music, specifically in singing. I said, why don't you take music? Because I cannot bless her with that. Theology, I don't care where John goes. I'll teach him theology. I have that. But I told DJ, because I cannot bless her with that. I can pray for her on that one, but I cannot bless her with that. I cannot transfer a blessing of musicality to her. I don't have it. Yeah. But what I have are financial blessings that I can send her to school to study music. But she refused. You see. Now these are some of the things. That's why when you bless your kids, you don't just tell your kids you can do whatever you want. That's from the devil, I'm telling you. And I know it. Now some of your kids will be very obedient. You take note of, bless those who want your blessing. Some will be very disobedient. That's why even with the kids here, your parents will not always be right. But guys, you need to learn obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice. You know. And when you begin to develop that servant heart, then you open your heart to a lot of blessings. Amen? A lot of things that you want. Let's all stand.